So welcome everyone to the first of our 3 webinars. And I'm really excited for tonight because it's a conversation with both our authors at the same time. I've gotten to know them a little bit in the last couple months, and it's exciting for me to talk to authors and also to talk to 2 people that live in 2 countries and both share this deep, deep connection to the Great Lakes. So I'm looking forward to exploring that with all of you tonight. So our conversation tonight is with Joanne Robertson. And Joanne is the author of our children's selection for the Great Lakes Great Read, The Water Walker. And we are also going to get a chance to talk with Sally Cole-Misch. And Sally is the author of our adult selection for 2024-25, The Best Part of Us. So my name is Ann Moser, and I am education coordinator and librarian at Wisconsin Sea Grant. So I'm the director of the Wisconsin Water Library. So I wear really 2 hats, and this project of Great Lakes Great Read brings them both together. So I work in my job to advance Great Lakes literacy and to learners of all ages. And for me to be able to host these events and encourage people to read is such a thrill because I feel strongly that the journey of understanding about our place is really, really powerful when we do it through the lens of literature. So, and I'm excited with our authors that we've chosen. So before I begin, I just want to share a few thank yous. We'll get to the conversation that you're here to listen to. I'm just gonna share a few thank yous because this Great Lakes Great Read project has really been a labor of love. And something I think everyone involved on the project really believes in. First, my gratitude is to the Will's Ideas to Action Fund. They provided us a small seed amount to be able to run these webinars and to do some of the work we have been doing to prepare for our community read. So we thank them. I also want to thank the staff at Wisconsin Sea Grant, especially our graphic designer, our web developer, and my incredible student. They worked really hard to help me with the website, which I really hope that you have had chance to visit. It is filled with beautiful materials, programming ideas. We're starting to build our calendar, different ways to access Sally and Joanne's books. So big shout out and thank you to Wisconsin Sea Grant. I also want to give a shout out to Laura Sauser. She's the executive director of the Wisconsin Library Association. So it's really exciting. I am saying hello to people across the Great Lakes watershed, including in Canada and the United States. And so my partner in Wisconsin is the Library Association. And Laura's a really large champion, a big fan of community read, and she's been really helpful with me kind of helping to figure out a new project for me. So thank you, Laura. And then across the lake or across the pond, across Lake Michigan, thank you to Inger Schultz with the Library of the Great Lakes. Her enthusiasm is fetching. She's already done really amazing programming in Michigan with more to come. Um, so as it takes a village, right, to do work like this. And then finally, this project came out of an idea of a writer, David Dempsey, thought about this, and we went forward with the idea. And so a very passionate group of people, all with different affiliations, have come together to think about the Great Lakes through literature. So we meet occasionally, several times during the year, and we call it a steering committee and have helped with ideas and guidance on ways we could do this. So thank you to them as well. All right. So this is a pilot project. This is the first year. There's a lot of people doing one book, one community. I haven't found another example of a one book, one watershed project. So it makes it geographically challenging. But I think it's also really exciting because water knows no boundaries, as we know from both our authors. the water is all of ours. It belongs to all of ours. And we see those messages very strongly in both books. And so I will introduce both authors before we get started. So Sally Cole-Misch resides in Michigan, and she's had a very long career as an environmental communicator, notably with the International Joint Commission. She holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Missouri, a master's degree in environmental education and international water policy from the University of Michigan, and a certificate in fiction writing from Stanford University. And throughout her career, she has really focused on the connection between our essential connection between nature and ourselves. And really, her themes include the role that all of us have in caring and restoring and conserving our watersheds and our natural places. Um, and Joanne Robertson is, so Joanne lives, writes, and draws beside the Goulet River in Ontario. She is Anishinaabe Cree and was adopted as a baby by her French, German, Canadian parents. Joanne was raised on a farm in southern Ontario and was reunited with her Anishinaabe family in her 20s. So Joanne began helping Josephine Ba, grandmother Josephine Ba Mandamin, with her water walking in 2011. Um, I'm just so amazed at this. Joanne received her degree in fine arts from Algoma University, and here we go, Shingwak Kinmuge Gamig at age 50, which is really a remarkable feat. So, and that term, Ojibwe term, refers to Center of Excellence in Ojibwe, no, Anishinaabe Education. So, yeah, so two beautiful writers we have with us. And so let's dive in. I have a series of questions for both authors, which we'll just riff off of and ask them to reflect on. But I'd like to start the first question with Joanne, because I'd also like to invite her to introduce herself in her traditional way. So shall we dive to use a good water metaphor, right? And again, don't forget to use the Q&A, because we would love to hear from the people in the room for sure. Okay, so Joanne, this is kind of a tired old question an author must have to navigate, but I've heard you in the last couple of months, both of you talk about this, but please share your inspiration for your story. Just tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Okay, so Bonjour, Meskonango Kwe Indigenous Magazine Dodam. So my English name is Joanne, like I said, but my spirit name is Red Star, and I'm Bald Eagle Clan. And my community, she mentioned a couple of them, but my other one is Tikamek-Sheng Anishinaabe, which is in Northern Ontario beside Sudbury. So the inspiration for the book is obviously Grandma Josephine and the Mother Earth Water Walkers. And Grandma Josephine and I, we went to university together. And one of our professors, he's the Grand Chief Eddie Bobet and Benet. He was one who, the prophecy that I write about in the book, where in 30 years time, if we continue with our negligence, water is going to cost as much as gold. What are you going to do about it? He was one of our professors at school. So we did a lot of water work together while we were in school. And Grandma, by the time I met her, she had already walked around most of the Great Lakes. But after I graduated in 2011, she decided we were going to walk from the 4 saltwaters to Lake Superior. And so the Pacific Ocean, Gulf of Mexico, Atlantic Ocean, and Hudson Bay. And so I said, oh, I would love to archive that work for you, because this is going to be huge, right? And so we went to the Medeowan Lodge, and Grand Chief Eddie Bobet and Benet said to the people, okay, there's this big walk coming up, and if you have any questions, you can ask the coordinator. And then he said my name. So I'd never water walked before, so it was pretty terrifying. But anyways, that's what I ended up doing. And so I helped her for 2011 was a huge walk. And then the next, she did a bunch of other little walks in between, but 2015 and 2017 were also cross country walks. And the year before her final walk in 2017, I was on a leave from work and I decided I wanted to write and illustrate. And my first day back at work, there was a poster in my mailbox that said Aboriginal writing contest. So I wrote her and asked her permission if I could share her story. And she said, I've been waiting for you. And it was this beautiful letter she wrote me. But so that's how the book came about. And the book actually came out 4 weeks after her final big water walk. So the timing was pretty good. So her sneakers, she didn't do big water walks anymore, but she wore her sneakers into classrooms after that and met all the kids with me. So she was my big inspiration, obviously.
Well, inspiring you not only to do the book, but to do the work too. It sounds like you really, it was a time where you became an advocate of NIBI. It sounds like NIBI water, right?
Yeah, I still do that work. I'm called Spot because during the 2011 Four Directions walk, I introduced the GPSing it on the sides of the copper pails. So because the 4 pails were moving at the same time, so we had to know where they were to keep the water and them safe. So they'll do that. Yeah.
Well, we'll hear more of grandmother Josephine Ba's story, I imagine, on your own webinar. Sally, would you share your inspiration for your writing?
Sure. All right. Thanks so much for having me and welcome everyone. It's great to be with Anne and Joanne here. I wanted to talk about first my professional life, which, almost spilled my water. For most of my professional life, I've lived in the fact-based world of journalism and then environmental communications and policy. And in that process, as Anne mentioned, I have really focused on trying to describe how every living thing is connected to another and how our lifestyles impact the planet and especially our majestic Great Lakes. And also to try and get people to think about what are the sometimes simple but often complicated and often, almost always, expensive choices we have to make to restore and protect the health of our water, our land, our air, our animals, and even ourselves. So when all of that evidence about the ways we were damaging the environment was first becoming clear, and I'm going to age myself, but that's 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit into the 90s, we were starting to pass laws and regulations to really help combat some of that worst pollution, especially in the Great Lakes Basin, whether it's Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, whatever. But all of that hammering home, all of that horrible news really terrified the public. And it didn't encourage them or us, I'll include me in that, to change the behaviors that led to all of this environmental degradation. So we as communicators learned to switch our approach to focus first on getting people outside because the benefits of spending time in nature are now so well documented. It feeds the soul, it reduces stress, anxiety, and feelings of isolation, makes us feel part of something bigger than ourselves, and improves our mood and cognitive function. So this shift in focus has been much more successful in helping people to want to listen to the scientific evidence and to understand how they can contribute to a healthier world, from their daily actions to the information they seek out to even who they vote for in local, state, provincial, and national elections. So throughout my career, it's been really gratifying to share this latest Great Lakes research and policies with people in the US, Canada. And I really think that we've seen over these 40 years, we've seen a regional change in the value that people place on the lakes in particular. Towards the end of that part of my career, I started to wonder if I could help to remind folks of their essential connections with nature and the lakes we all share through a story. One that reminds them of the special places in nature that they love and that reinforces nature's value in our lives. Because what we value, we act to protect, right?
Yeah.
So as a lifelong fiction reader, I know how much stories have impacted my life and thinking. And yet I found very few novels that it included nature in the ways that I perceive it in my life. And I found even fewer that are set in reflect the beauty of the Great Lakes region.
Mhm.
So my love for the lakes and my interest in it, a challenge at the end of my career, provided the first steps forward to writing this book.
Mm. So that's interesting. I hear from both of you that, you know, the lake inspired you, but also to raise awareness and to, you know, affect change, right? You know, for those of us in science, we're always trying to communicate. And both of you are using this art form to communicate all the same scientific concepts and just empower people with information, like the information of how powerful a woman walking, a Native woman walking, the power of our connection to place through this family. Yeah, I mean, that's, you both come from completely different backgrounds, and then you both come to be inspired with the same mission, is what I'm hearing. Is that, would you agree with that? I mean, I think that's why we're here, right, doing this work right now. Oh, yes, I would really agree. So I'll turn back to you, Sally. So we both kind of go back and forth with both of you. And this question, I think, is always telling to me when I talk to anybody that reads a book, like, what do they get out of it? Like, I feel like whenever we meet at book club, you know, we're always like, what'd you think? What at the end of the book, what was your, you know, you kind of want to have that message. What is it that you would like, you hope that your readers leave with your book?
Well, first of all, as you can probably tell from my initial words, I really hope that the reader experiences nature and the Great Lakes region as a living, vibrant character.
Yeah.
That through this, they're inspired to reconnect with places and nature that they hold dear. I specifically set this novel in the region of a lake, and because so many people in our region enjoy family cottages, either along lakes, rivers, or in the woods. So that was my initial reasoning for the setting. But I also hope that they connect with the living characters, the human characters in the story, and the
Yeah.
bonds that they have with each other and with the lake and land. So when, oh gosh, with all of the characters in different ways, they have the best of intentions. They really do. They may be acting out of love or fear, but when all of those best of intentions result in the worst of outcomes,
Mhm.
what are the consequences for each of these characters not being in a place in nature that they love and someone that they consider part of their souls? And how is each primary character forced to consider who and what is most valuable to them and what they want to most be loyal to?
Mhm.
So I also finally wanted to want readers to hopefully find hopefulness in the
Mhm.
story, that we
Mhm.
can always choose to change our perspectives and lives to be who, what, and where we feel we're meant to be. That when we're loyal to our own connections and our values, that's when we find the best part of us.
Mhm. Yeah, very true. I would agree. Joanne, do you want to answer that or reflect on what Sally said at all?
Um, I think when people finish reading The Water Walker, I hope that they're inspired to answer the question, what are you going to do about it? So I think we all need to strengthen our relationship with water. And from our worldview, water's alive and it has a spirit. So we should be asking ourselves, do we know the water that we live near as well as we know, you know, our family members or our relations, right? So I know sometimes my husband gets really embarrassed when I say like talk about Mother Earth or whatever like that. But if we start looking at creation as our mother, like how do we treat our mother, right? So just to strengthen our relationship. And also um sometimes you can like you a lot of us are fortunate to live by the Great Lakes, but even if you don't, like during COVID, we couldn't go out. If we remember that we're all bodies of water, like we all carry water. So to have self-respect and also to be kind to each other, that's a way of showing love to the water.
Mhm.
So yeah, just to build up that relationship, you know, for the water above, below, in us.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, you both are talking about connections to place and to water, and I felt those themes strongly in both your books for sure. Um, so, you're talking about connection and relationship and respect. And you've talked about this a little bit, so I'm going to turn this. This is a question I didn't share with you ahead of time, but um, this is a harder question for you to answer, Joanne, so perhaps this is directed to Sally. Um, do You're talking about all these themes. Did one of those characters really speak to you a lot when you wrote the book? Because they're making choices and they're living with those consequences, all those themes that you were talking about.
It's an interesting question, and um, I learned how to write fiction through a program through Stanford University, and uh, over 3 years, it was a very intensive program, all online with students from 18 countries and, amazing professors. We spent probably the first entire semester just writing pages about each character and putting them in situations.
Whoa.
So by the time I got to actually writing the story and the scenes, I could tell when it was the grandfather's voice, Ty, versus the son, Dylan, or the main character, Beth. They came through very clearly. I would say that as far as the message and themes in the book, the idea of respect and connection, Dylan is probably the one that most represents what I see as a true connection with nature and a recognition from very young instinctively what his connection with the natural world is and his need to be part of it, to be part of his life every day. But all of the characters come of age in different ways, or a few of them don't. And I intentionally wrote the book so that the characters, each of them is based first and foremost as to what their level of connection is with nature. So, fortunate enough to have Ojibwe people in the book, characters. They obviously are at one end of the spectrum. Then, Dylan's pretty close and some other characters, and then there are a couple characters on the far end that really are not very comfortable in nature for a variety of reasons. And how they all change over time is, I think, really gets to the heart, helps to get to the heart of the story.
Yeah, it's a very character-driven story. You kind of follow where they're making their decisions. And so, to think about this question for you, Joanne, you wrote about a real person, right? But you've also been a water walker yourself. Do you want to share just a little bit more about grandmother Josephine? Any more wisdom, or is there any kind of something else? I didn't share these questions with you, but I'm just thinking a lot about the people that you wrote about.
She was a teacher to all of us, but I'll say something about when she started water walking in 2003. There were 4 of them that set out, and they just had scouts then. Like, they didn't have their cell phones and all that stuff when they started. So they really trusted their Sema and just went out, knew that they were doing it for the water and that everything would work out well. So 4 of them set out, and then in 2017, like starting from sitting at a coffee table talking, 2017, there were over 1,000 people that walked for the water that year. And she had Parkinson's, and it just showed her, I guess a lot of the kids would ask me, why didn't I draw mouths on the, and I hadn't really thought about it. I just did it. But finally it came to me, the one answer was actions speak louder than words.
Oh.
Yeah. And people ask me if there's any last words I ever want to say about water, and water is unconditional love. And I think that's what Grandma Josephine had for us and for all life, thinking 7 generations in the future, and not just for people, but for the trees and the plants and the flyers and everyone, if you think 7 generations in the future for a tree, like how long is that into the future, right? So like one birch tree apparently drinks on a hot summer's day, drinks 2 bathtubs full of water. So she walked for all those birch trees too, right? So and if you figure out how much fresh water is in the world, I don't know, it's just really overwhelming sometimes when you when you start thinking of
Beautiful, unconditional love, though. What a beautiful way to think about nature's kind of like that too.
Mhm.
We walk out and we're in nature, and it's this incredible experience, and it doesn't ask anything of us.
Yeah, and everything was created before us, right? Like we were the last here so that we could learn from all of creation, right? And we've kind of forgot our place in the world. We think we're above creation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Pathetic, right? Like
Yeah.
a tree without us, water can flow without us, but we can't do anything without all the other people, or all the other life, I should say, on earth, right? So we have to remember our place again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful reflection on both your books, actually, now that I think about it. Um, So this is for maybe anyone in the audience who might be a writer and might be interested in, the experience of being a writer. And Joanne asked this question, so I'm kind of chuckling. I can't remember who went first last time, so I think I'll direct it to you first, Joanne, just because you brought it up to us. If you could go back in a magic ball, um, would you change anything about your book? And
Yeah,
what would it be?
I would change during a water walk, the women usually carry the copper vessel and the
Mhm.
men eagle staff. And during the 2011 water walk from the 4 directions, when I started my work with grandma, there were hardly any men at all. So women had to do both. So when I wrote her story, because that's when I started my work, there's no men, right? And there's no male eagle staff carriers anywhere in the book.
Mhm.
I'd like to add an eagle staff carrier on that one spread where there's the big sun when they're first setting
Yep.
out, because during the 2003 water walk before my time, there was an eagle staff carrier who walked the whole distance with the grandmothers, like 4 of them set off and
Mhm.
a few others added on, but his name was Mario Wasagijic. I think I said his name right. And he carried the eagle staff the whole way for the grandmothers, and he got a lot of teasing and stuff, but that's just a sign of affection. But he did that during the 2003 water walk. And there's been others through the years that I've personally worked with that if I were to do the book now, there would definitely be a male eagle staff carrier representing the work that they've done for the water. But at the time, like I've gotten a few comments about it from water walkers, and Grandma Josephine always stood up for me and said, well, we can never find enough men to carry the staff, right? Like, and always have to work. So but there are, not to say anything bad, because there are a lot of men, more so now, that are like the last water walk we did around Lake Huron. A lot of men showed up. Like in one of the touchstone pictures, I think there were 5 in one day, and that's usually you get 5 for a whole walk. So that was that was things are yeah, that's good. They're picking up their work again. Yeah.
I imagine like a book must be like a child or something that you nurture in your heart for the rest of your life. And I'm sure you probably think a lot about it. Uh, Not just you don't just write a book and put it aside, right? Especially especially this book living with you as you go forward. And the book obviously honors these water walkers. So
Mhm.
beautiful. And you would like to honor everyone who's been working so hard. So
Mhm.
thank you, Joanne, for sharing that. Um, and you, Sally, do you want to share something about what you've discovered since the book came out and something you'd change?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because all of these characters came alive in my heart and imagination, and they truly are imagination. This isn't in any way my family or people I know. They might be, some combination of people. But I had a series of beta readers who are people who, really have the knowledge base as far as writing, or their dear friends or whatever. I had a group of them that kept reading the book in its different drafts. And I actually went through 12 drafts of the ending. There were different beta readers that kept saying, they'd say, nope, I'm still not buying Kate's story. Or as a mom, or, all these different things. And I'd have to keep going back and trying to deepen her story in order to help people understand the dynamics, what her future potential is, her evolution over the course of it, and why, some people were very angry with her as well as to why she was acting the way she was. But I think in retrospect, after talking with so many readers, either in events like this, or I've done more than 70 book clubs, either in Zoom or in person, because remember the book came out at the height of COVID. What I have found is I think I would have been smarter to go back and actually deepen Dylan's story a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's a very introspective, quiet character. It would have taken me a lot more time to pull that out of him. He said everything at the end that he needed to say, and he was very clear. But I think for the reader and the kind of questions that I've gotten in book clubs, and actually the different people in groups say, yeah, but he did that, and yeah, but he did that because, and obviously a real true conflict, and people trying to wrestle in their own minds how they might respond, or how they saw the characters. So I think I might have focused a little bit more on Dylan. I was, really focused on Beth, and then on Kate because of the beta readers. So it might have been fun to explore him a little bit more too.
Yeah. Well, he can be in your next book if you ever decide to do that. I imagine both of you must get so attached to the people. Obviously, Joanne, your dear friend, but yeah. Um, I hate to ask this question because it's kind of asking you to reveal a secret, but do you have any favorite Great Lakes places that you like to go, since both of your books are place-based?
I like going to Batchewana Bay. It's not far from us. It's on Lake Superior. So when I was a kid, we always went to Lake Erie when it was dying. So we were only allowed to play on the sand, and when it got really hot, we could only jump in and jump out right away because it was so. That was in the 1960s when it was like it was really bad. So mom would only let us in the water for a second to cool off, and we jump out right away. But I still have really good memories because I have one of my favorite pictures of me and my dad is, building little sand castles or whatever on the beach down there. So yeah, but Lake Superior, it's just like crystal clear. It's really nice and freezing all the time.
I was gonna ask, do you go swimming in Lake Superior?
Out to my
I've worked with Minnesota Sea Grant and their teachers, and I was on a workshop in Lake Superior, and the Wisconsin people stood at the side and the Minnesotans went right into Lake Superior. We all stood there and went, oh, that's one cold lake.
yeah, it's
Yeah. So that lake, I'll have to look that one up. Lake Superior is a beauty, isn't she? And you, Sally, do you have a favorite Great Lakes place?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate through my work, or my family travels, to really see almost all of the Great Lakes region. There's so many places that I have fallen in love with, and their energies, and their hearts, and just the beauty of the lakes and the forests. And so a favorite is the setting for the book, the Northern Lake Huron region, and especially the gorgeous. I'm always astounded by the Canadian Shield rocks, and just there. It's just, and it's so, Lake Huron is kind of the forgotten lake a lot, and up in that region. It's not very developed, and so I love just going there and feeling like I'm being fully immersed.
Yeah.
I also really love Sleeping Bear Bay in Lake.
Mhm.
The sand dunes are just spectacular. All of the trails, the Manitou Islands. It's different, but it's equally beautiful.
Yeah.
The water,
I oh, go
sorry,
ahead. So
the
go ahead.
walkers walked around Lake Huron this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, last summer, a group of them walked around Lake Superior. So 20 years after Grandma Josephine did.
I grew up on the East Coast and went to Long Island into the Atlantic Ocean all the time. And I've now lived here most of my life. And my family does not understand about the beauty here. And they just, even if they see it, they can't, they're like, "Mm, oh." And I brought my sister-in-law here to Lake Michigan, and it was such a windy day, and she was, it's like the ocean. I'm like, it is very much. It's an inland sea. Well, thank you for sharing those beautiful places. I think everyone listening probably has their own favorite place. So this is for the librarians in the audience. I run a little book club, and I love when writers and authors and readers tell me other books that they love, because if I love your book, I'm sure I'll love your recommendation. So I don't know who's to go first. I think Sally, you should go first this time.
Okay, sure. So I know for all the librarians in the group, the Library of the Great Lakes and the Great Lakes Great Read website, they both have excellent bibliographies on their websites for a ton of different nonfiction, fiction, poetry, whatever. They have a really great collection. I'm just going to list two books, one fiction and one non. The first one is Jane Hamilton's The Excellent Lombards.
Mm.
She is an amazing American writer, and all of her books are set primarily in Wisconsin, the Great Lakes. Particular book is about a family that owns an apple orchard in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
Minnesota to see family, whatever, you get a real sense of the Great Lakes, Western Great Lakes personality. And the conflict is really about figuring out for the youngest child if leaving home actually means losing a part of yourself. So
Mhm.
you can kind of see the combinations, the connections to
Mhm.
book that I know.
Mhm.
One is a book. There's a man that I worked with for years at the International Joint Commission. His name's Dr. John Hardig,
Mhm.
lifelong Great Lakes scientist and advocate for the lakes. And I was fortunate to watch him help to coordinate the development of what we call remedial action plans to clean up and restore 43 of the most degraded areas around the Great Lakes Basin. And he's now a visiting scholar at the University of Windsor. And he writes about how communities are coming together to restore and protect their regions of the lakes and to really encourage sustainability. And
Mhm.
his books, one of the ones is called Rouge. Make sure I can get this. And it's an excellent book with a lot of different authors that kind of goes through all the different actions that people are taking. I know you mentioned earlier Dave Dempsey. I'll just throw out just one of his, this Great Lakes for Sale. He has probably almost a dozen books now, I think. He was a Great Lakes policy person for decades. And anybody could look up Dave Dempsey's books and be thrilled with what he's written as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of I think I don't know if I have as many Jane Hamilton. I should get some books on there, but both Inger with Library of Great Lakes and my websites have tons if you're interested in learning more about the Great Lakes, especially in the nonfiction area, because I think I've tried to find some titles that are accessible to all of us that, sometimes it gets overwhelming when you read a lot of science, and there's so many great science writers out there that are, really writing beautiful books for all of us to understand these really intense topics. Well, thank you. Hmm. And clearly, I'm the librarian in the group. I'm super excited to learn more titles from friends. And Joanne, what would you recommend for us to read?
I'm going to start with this one. It's by Gary and Joni McGuffin, and it's called Great Lakes Journey, and they're our neighbors. So I get to see them every now and again. And this book is about they paddled from along the coastline from Thunder Bay to Port Severn. So that's Georgian Bay, Lake Huron area. And Joni does the writing, but Gary is an awesome photographer. So it's just loaded. It's like a beautiful coffee table book loaded with his photographs. So I have a few books out. This next book isn't specifically about the Great Lakes, but it's about relationships and how we're dependent on each other. And I just got this book a couple weeks ago and I absolutely love it. It's called I'm Afraid, Said the Leaf. The whole story is about how we're connected to each other and how we depend on each other for survival and wellness. So I really, and it's by Danielle Daniel and illustrated by Matt James. And then this last one is a guide, and again, it's not specifically about the Great Lakes, but it's sort of an introduction to Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee worldviews, because they're different than mainstream people. But it talks quite a bit, about water and different things, but there's also a little part about water. Quite a few parts about water in it. But this one is good because I don't know if you can get the guide anymore, but it's a PDF online that you can get. So there's a lot of good things about our worldview in there. And this is shameless, but I'm going to do it anyways. My second book.
Yes.
So it's a picture book.
It's
so for the book. Tiny ones, right? It's a little board book. Sorry, not a picture book, but a board book. And it has that's Grandma Josephine on the cover, and she did it before she passed on. And there's one other really. This is I have all notes in it, but that's our dog.
Oh.
But it's in English and Anishinaabe. But for the people that are here today, there's a little secret on every page. Every page has Grandma Josephine hidden somewhere. And also there's 2 water drops that make up a heart on every page. So unless most people, how kids love looking for stuff like that. I usually don't tell anyone, but when, there's something like this, then I'll say, just so
it's a secret. That is the best thing when you work with children, is to do that, have them discover on every page. Was that your idea, Joanne, when you illustrated it? Yeah. I love that you put her on the page. Woo! So for those of you on the in the webinar, I have your email, so I will email you all of these titles. Because I think that would be really important for you to get those titles recommended. So I have a couple of questions in the chat. Was there anything either you or Joanne want to add before we look at some questions from our participants or from our attendees? All right. So thank you for your question, Jacqueline. This is directed to you, Sally. She was just wondering why you didn't feature Native people more in your story. Was that a conscious choice? How did you go about deciding that?
Yeah, I wanted to be, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of First Nations, especially in Ontario, and tribes as well in the States, especially Michigan. There's part of it was a cultural, appropriation. I didn't want to feel like I was, I didn't want the main family to be Anishinaabe, because I'm not, and I don't want to try and appropriate that. But I did feel that it was really essential to include them and suggestions of their culture and beliefs in the book, as I said, because that's where they live, and also it's such an amazing extreme and wonderful lesson for people to think about the 7 generations and connection to spirit based on the land they live on, and all the different ways that they have an innate connection with nature that we Anglo-Saxon or whatever other part of the world we're from don't necessarily have. So, you know, I tried to include it as much as I could. But at a certain point, I had indigenous beta readers. There was some disagreement about how some scenes should go, whether they're from this tribe or that tribe or First Nation or whatever. And so there were areas where I chose to take those scenes out. Really wanted to be respectful and to try and have all of them agree as best they could with what I was portraying in the story.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And thanks for that good question, Jacqueline. One of our attendees lives on Beaver Island. So they ask if you've ever been there. And she says, we recently had a visit from 5 grandmothers from New Zealand, Guatemala, and Michigan. So have either of you been to Beaver Island, had the experience there?
I have been there it was probably 8 or 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
There, probably 35 years ago, when one of my best friends in junior high, their family moved to Beaver Island. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm envious.
And you, Joanne, have you ever been there? I have not. I'll put it on my list. Thank you for sharing that. I think that Laura might have a couple of questions for us as well.
Hi, everyone. So we talked earlier about themes that were present in your books, and one theme that that came up for me was the idea of the wisdom, the theme of the wisdom of elders. So could you reflect on that in both of your books?
I can go, I guess.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, Grandma Josephine, she was just, I don't know, she just had so much wisdom. And I think a lot of it too, one of our teachers, well, I mentioned him already, Grand Chief Eddie Bobette and Benet, he told us that we can learn a lot, we learn through here. He said, but if we want to teach it, it has to come from here. And I think everything that Grandma Josephine did came from here. Like it went in here first, but it came from here. If anyone asked her, can I do this or mention your name here, or can I write a story about you here, whatever, she always put her tobacco down and thought about it first, because she wanted everything that she did to be for the water and not for ego. And she wanted to make sure that the motivations of those asking her, that it was for the water too. So I don't know, just a lot of wisdom comes with sitting quietly. Like she used to sit and just listen to the water. And we're all so busy right now. We don't take that time to just sit and be quiet. So maybe that comes, with getting older too, taking that time, realizing what's important. Yeah, so I'll just say that because, yeah.
Oh, I love that heart. Yes. And Sally.
Yeah, I'll just say that there are probably three primary elders in this story. One is Tide, the Anglo-Saxon grandfather from Wales. He operates very much on love and fear. He does have a real connection with nature in an Anglo-Saxon kind of way, but like the Welsh, he celebrates Lammas Day, which first day of harvest and that sort of thing, and has a lot of connections there. The elder in the Ojibwe tribe or First Nation is equally there, but he's in the background, and you get a sense of him mainly through another character named Ben, who teaches Beth and Dylan about nature and their connections with it. She goes loon diving with him, and different experiences to really help both of them learn about nature and become so connected to it. And I think the grandfather tide is really valuable from the aspect that he really operates from love and then fear, and those being the primary emotions that that drive most of our affections and our time. For him to come of age over the course of the book and to realize what he's cost himself and the rest of his family from his fear, I think is what helps the rest of them and him come of age and recognize the value of the lake and island in their own lives and to their own souls.
And there's a comment in the chat, which I'm very happy to share. Thank you, Sean. Both of these amazing authors are presenting at the WLA conference in early November, and we will have books for sale and signing. So if you are a librarian that's interested in coming to our conference, please let me know. We would love to have you. Do we have time for one more question, Anne? Anne, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So that's for Wisconsinites. There's also people from around the basin. Both authors are available for conversation. I know Sally especially enjoys visiting book clubs, so definitely reach out. Check out the Great Lakes Great Read website. So thank you. Yeah, maybe one more question, Laura.
Okay.
That would be great.
Sure. What did you learn about yourself from writing this book?
Joanne, you want to go first? Do you want me?
That I can, I guess not so much about writing the book because that's part of my work for the water, but doing my water work in general, that I can do hard things, that even if I'm scared, I love the water and the grandmothers more than my fear, I guess.
Oh,
Really wonderful, Joanne. I feel like this book and being part of Great Lakes Great Read, which I'm so honored to have my book chosen for this, it's kind of full circle for me. It's kind of the perfect circle in that I started as a journalist, got pushed into environmental things when they really weren't talked about or reported on at all. You know, felt like, okay, I don't really know what I'm talking about. So went back to Michigan for more schooling. And my whole life has been deepening my experiences and my knowledge base and my love of the Great Lakes region and the lakes themselves. So for me to be able to be part of this program and to be able to share and encourage that love in other people and the sense of connection that we have with nature, it's been truly a gift. So it's wonderful.
Cool. We continue learning and we continue to challenge ourselves. Those are two beautiful results, I think. Oh yeah, go ahead. Did you?
Just wanted to add, I had the pleasure of, Joanne, I know doesn't remember this, but I had the pleasure of walking with Josephine for about 5 miles with some commissioners around Lake Superior way back in, I think it was 2016. And so I'll just add that it's a real honor to be with this program with Joanne and her book as well.
So I'm going to squeeze in one more question because one of our attendees asked, and then I think this will be it because we're running out of time. Are our authors working on any new books?
I have one I just submitted at the end of June to my publisher, and it's about my friend who's a residential school survivor. And I haven't heard back from them yet, but I heard that they love the illustrations, so hopefully it'll be out next fall.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, and another one too. I'm working on a book for the junior water walkers. So I don't think I talked about them tonight, but I'll talk about them in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I do not have a novel. I have been doing a lot of writing nonfiction for different organizations and that sort of thing. I have one brewing in my mind since I'm very active in politics right now in the elections. So kind of a nature politics sort of thing kind of swirling around in my mind. I'm watching all these people that I'm working with very closely. Nothing yet. I really want to just keep pushing on this book, not pushing, but encouraging and sharing our love of the Great Lakes with everyone as best I can.
Oh, it sounds great. So, this hour went by so fast. I just really enjoyed talking to both of you and to talk about the Great Lakes. Pretty awesome. So I want to just remind the attendees that are here, we will have, this is a webinar series, so we will have webinars with each of the authors themselves. So in 1 week on October 2nd, Sally will be joining us and she's going to do about 20 or 30 minutes of remarks. And then just like in this venue, we'll open it up for your questions. So please, I hope you can come. 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And hit that home run with remembering the time change. And then in 2 weeks, on October 9th, we will go ahead and have the same with Joanne, another opportunity to ask questions. So I think they'll dive deeper into their own work, into the Great Lakes. We just had a nice taste of it today. So I hope you'll join us. Please register on the Great Lakes Great Read website. And do please check it out. There's a lot of beautiful materials there developed by a lot of different people. So, and I'm very welcoming of other content. So if there's program ideas you have or books you want to recommend, let us know. There's a contact spot. So I would just really like to thank Sally and Joanne. I just really enjoy speaking to both of you. Totally different backgrounds coming together with the same mission that we all have about the Great Lakes. So, all right. And without further ado, I guess we'll say goodnight. Thank you to all our attendees for coming. Hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks or next week. Good night now.